Know it all, get news of all sorts. Know it all, from traffic to weather to sports. When it comes to facts, we're no stop. For the bottom line, go right to the top. Know it all news, Radio 15.
We were a wild and crazy bunch. It was like the front page in those early days because no one had ever in this town done an all-news radio operation before.
I was in the Air Force, stationed at the National Security Agency. And for 13 consecutive Thursdays, I called here because I wanted a job on WTOP radio. And finally, they hired me as a $2 an hour copy boy.
And you came out and we had wire machines. You had cascading paper everywhere. And this carousel that was just stuffed with these folders with stories just pouring out of it.
We could do the traffic reports and cover just about all the congestion by spending about 2 hours in the morning from 7 to 9, and then again 2 hours in the afternoon from 4 until 6. And basically that was rush hour.
You had teletype wires instead of computers. You had 5-copy paper in an Olympia typewriter.
You came off from an hour and you had 1 hour to get the next hour on the air. And then, you know, there's no, oh, wait, I'm not ready. It was like, to hell with that. Get into the booth and get your headset on and get ready to take it right after CBS News.
And I thought at the time, well, this will be another format change, couple of months, couple of years, we'll go to something else. I hope I don't lose my job.
Worked for a month and a half, moved up to production assistant, and by that summer, by July, I was on the air on the overnights doing part-time fill-in anchor work for guys on vacation. I was awful. I really was. They buried me on the overnights. But that's where I learned all-news radio.
Remember, this is before cable. This was before all news on television. And the idea of keeping something going for 24 hours a day was astounding. How the hell are we going to do this?
I mean, it was just wild. It was crazy. I was very thin back then.
It's one small step for man. Amazing. It's just fantastic what's happening here.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
The Redskins paid tribute to Sean Taylor before and during the game at FedEx Field today.
Well, the incidence of the sniper attack several years ago was, again, one of those extraordinary experiences, not just as a reporter, but as a human being.
Ramsey, let's check in with Christy King in Montgomery County, where they're investigating a string of shootings this morning. Christy, what's the latest?
Within the course of about 16 hours, 4 people have been shot and killed here in Montgomery County.
I live in Kensington, very nice, quiet area. And to know that this lady, I believe, vacuuming her car at the station in Kensington was picked off by this sniper. And that's maybe 5 blocks away from where I live.
9:58, just before you went on the air with Ask the Chief, someone shot and killed at the Shell Station, Connecticut and Knowles. Police don't have much to go on at this point, but at a couple of different locations, there have been witnesses describing a white box truck.
It was eerie because you never knew where this guy or these guys were going to strike.
We tried to strike a balance between the information that our listeners and drivers needed to know and the information that we didn't want to compromise should the suspects be in that area.
And then when they caught the guy up in Myersville, I was in my car.
Now, breaking news from WTOP.
2 people sought by police in connection with the sniper investigation are now under arrest this morning in Frederick County. We have very fast developing details.
On the way home, I was riveted to WTOP with the story, and there was a sense of relief.
I don't know who said that we were the most important city in the world. Maybe that was Riggs Bank in their promotions years ago. They were most important. You know, news-wise, it is. And when you think about it, and this, the IQ, news IQ of listeners, radio listeners in this city is unique, and it's been that way for a very long time.
Looking at TOP now, I mean, it's just a juggernaut. It is so on fuego. It's amazing how you almost live by it. I get in my car and I just, you just have it on there because you just feel you're tethered to information by just having TOP in the background.
I know that if I'm in the car or if I'm home and I want to know what happened in a ball game last night, it's 13 minutes after the hour. I got 2 minutes. I'm going to find out at quarter after. I know if I'm on the Beltway heading to the airport to fly out of town to do a ball game, and I'm wondering about, is there a traffic jam in 95? Well, on the 8s, I got it right there.
When I go places, people come up and recognize me from TV. But the first thing they say, almost 95% of the time, is I listen to you every morning. And that it's always struck me as interesting that they know who I am because they see me, but they relate to me from hearing me.
The relationship between us and our customers is absolutely essential. Of course, this is true of any broadcast entity, that ideally, if the audience, if the viewer, if the listener feels like they are a part of that family, and the best radio stations certainly have done that, have created a sense of community and family so that the person who is listening feels like they're part of it.
Heavy identifiable personalities that made some stations popular and very, very successful in the ratings are no more. The WTOP is, to me, right there all the time.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
This is AC. I have OJ in the car.
Today is our chance to say thank you for the way you brightened our lives.
The dance continues for George Mason.
Len Bias was an All-American basketball player at Maryland. Not only All-Conference, All-ACC, All-American, had tremendous leaping ability. First-round pick in the NBA draft of the Boston Celtics.
He did a wonderful speech to kids about role models and about responsibility and staying away from drugs and alcohol and everything else. He was the All-American kid.
And I remember anchoring that day. Steve Reddish was on the editor's desk. Steve Reddish was a huge sports guy.
Unfortunately, when he was drafted by the Celtics, they had a little party. Some of the guys got together with him within 48 hours of his being drafted, and he went into cardiac arrest after a ingestion of cocaine into his system.
Traces of cocaine have been found in Len Bias's system, and Channel 9 further reports that Bias and others may have been using cocaine at a party last night. WTOP
and Steve looked like he was going to cry. And I remember staring at him and thinking, wow, it's that big. I mean, I knew who Len Bias was, but I thought, Reddish looks like he's going to cry. Wow, this is that big. You know, and that's important because not every news event is going to hit you.
One of the toughest things I ever had to do, cover that story. I remember crying. Really not being able to believe this is really happened to this kid.
WTOP's Harvey Smilovitz is there with a live report.
Jamie, as you would expect, it's been a very traumatic day here at the University of Maryland. Less than 1 hour ago, Maryland head coach Lefty Driesell spoke out for the first time since this morning's tragedy.
I really don't know if I'm up to this, but I guess Leonard would want me to say something.
And I remember thinking, this is heartbreaking to a community here, to a huge swath through this town. This is heartbreaking.
I was working with one of the most wonderful people that's ever worked with WTOP, for WTOP, Jamie Bragg. He was a news reporter, a writer, an anchorman. He came in as a disc jockey, but he had that natural talent of broadcasting that so few of us have. He and I were doing a news report one morning, and the engineer at the time, whose name will go never said, accidentally hit the wrong button. This would be very unusual now, but in those days, if you hit the wrong button, you were in big trouble. He hit the doomsday tape. This is not a test, this is real. Please go to your nearest station. All of the horrible things that you never want to hear a radio station say. He played it. And we looked at him, and he looked at us, and and nobody called. nobody called. Nobody seemed to notice. Go figure. But that was one of the most unusual moments of my broadcast career, when we had literally announced the end of the world and nobody was paying attention.
A group of Arab terrorists burst into the Israeli compound at the Olympic Village in Munich.
The singer who shaked, rattled, and rolled his way to rock history died today in Memphis.
Any golfer who's a kid has always dreamt of playing the Masters and winning it. I was able to do that.
It was snowing heavily and steadily, and in those days when we could not fly, when the weather was down and we couldn't fly in the Cessna, I would take some of my monitors and go up to our transmitter site in Wheaton. I'm driving into the driveway of the transmitter. Ronnie Lieberman comes on the two-way radio, because there were no cell phones at that time, and said, anybody in the downtown area, head for the 14th Street Bridge. There's been an airplane crash.
This was dreadful. This was horrible. The Air Florida crash. I had my equipment in the car. I just drove down 14th Street to the Treasury Department, to the Bureau of Engraving and Printing.
And I remember hearing on the two-way radio Dave saying, I'm caught up in traffic. I'm having a hard time getting there. And I relayed to the editor to tell him, Dave, park anywhere. You're going to have to walk.
We do have several other WTOP reporters on their way to the scene.
It's going to be difficult for them to get in. They're having to hike in. They're having to hike in. Our Dave McConnell is trying to make it on foot now.
And I parked the car on the sidewalk in front of the Bureau of Printing and Engraving. I said, tough cookies, you know, we're going to get a ticket or we're not, but I can't miss this story. And it was getting cold. There was a physical feeling of not frostbite, but close to it. I was already experiencing, because I was dressed for an entirely different day. And I remember seeing this horrible scene of the bodies. By then, some bodies had been taken out, laying on the ground, bodies still in the water. And I've seen a lot of tough stuff in my career as a reporter. And I'd seen dead people before, because I covered a lot of police stories. But that was the most graphic, horrible scene. The airplane that didn't make it, and I had to start broadcasting from there on the phone.
Watching the rescue efforts as they continue over the 14th Street Bridge is WTOP's Dave McConnell in this live report.
I'm on the 14th Street Bridge near the Virginia side, Steve, and I'm watching helicopters coming down on the bank.
And I stayed there through the evening until the Channel 5 reporter looked at me and looked at my hands, and he said, Dave, you got to get out of here. You've got frostbite. You better leave. But I covered a long story for a long day, and that's, you know, as they say in the trade, that's a day I'll never forget.
About 18 years ago, Jim Farley, our boss, said, you know, if we say we do traffic and weather together on the 8s, that will be something that people can remember. And they'll know where to hear it, they'll know when to hear it, and if we can get people to listen in between to the rest of our programming, then we've done a good job.
I'd like to think that people want to listen to Today on the Hill, but I'm smart enough to know that I'm there between the 8s and the 18s and the 28s, the 8th after the hour.
Weather is, it's one of those things. You know, we could have a foot of snow tomorrow. And I mean, it's like the corporate blood pressure of Washington goes right off the scale. That's the way it is. Just look at any single day we get a few flakes of snow in the morning, what it does to the city. And then look at all the effects as it ripples down. It has an amazing impact. And I can speak from the weather part, and I know from the traffic folks as well, it puts a lot of pressure that you get it right every time. And that you give information, because they're going to make decisions that'll affect their safety, their livelihood, their state of mind, and whether you're going to come back and listen to us the next time or not.
So traffic and weather together on the 8s has become a slogan. In fact, one of our staffers was at a party with some politicians about a year and a half ago, and our guy Brian walked up to John McCain and he said, "Hi, I'm Brian, I work at WTOP," and Mr. McCain said, traffic and weather together on the 8s. So we think it's a pretty effective and memorable slogan.
And you have to see, for me, when I go to grocery shopping, you know, God forbid I ever buy toilet paper or milk. It's like, you know, it's crazy. So I make my wife do that.
Warm up the fat lady! Warm up the fat lady! The Bullets are going to win!
The Soviet
Soviet news agency TASS, the Chernobyl accident is the first for the Soviet Union.
Nancy Reagan was the first to go to the flag-draped casket, rubbing and gently patting it.
A gunman goes on a rampage at Virginia Tech.
When we heard the first news of an airplane crashing into the World Trade Center, I, as well as everybody else, said, oh, somebody must have flown into one of the buildings with a sightseeing plane.
Pretty dramatic picture we're looking at right now. Fire in one of the World Trade Center towers in New York City. We don't know the cause of this fire or exactly where.
When everybody saw the second jet, then we realized the world had changed.
Quickly after that, I arrived on the Hill, and it was absolute pandemonium.
Here. The Capitol is shut down. I can never remember a scene like this in my career and my life in Washington.
Information was a little tough to come by, but I felt that what people needed that day was a little bit of reassurance.
Neil Augenstein, you're live on the air. Tell us what you see at the Pentagon.
Okay, I'm standing right on, 395, right by the Boundary Channel Drive exit, looking across to the Pentagon, seeing heavy smoke covering the Pentagon. As you can hear, there are emergency equipment passing by from all directions.
The horror of an attack on the United States, and the fact that we were probably in the target zone, and what my wife must be going back about me at home, worried about me.
And I found myself saying, wait a minute, this event is still unfolding. The story hasn't been finished yet. And how we say it and the words we use to describe it do have an effect on how people are going to deal with it and how the story will play out.
I just think the sense of fear and the bewilderment, you can feel it in the air down here, and anger too. I think people, if you stop and think about it, they are angry that this has happened today.
I felt I was in the safest place in the world with all these police, with all this protection. It didn't occur to me that maybe one of these planes might want to attack the Capitol. I didn't think of that. That's what happens as a reporter, and that's one of the blissful things, if that's a word, is when you're so active in your story, you don't think about all the danger. It doesn't bother you. You think about it later.